Active my beautiful people. Don't know say I'm on the world and me there. I go and watch the weather. And me I say to all of the people who want travel, please be safe out there, you see me? Yeah man. Guys look what going on my people. Place like all junction. You don't know in a St. Mary. Them place that black and them thing there, you see me? Vehicle get can't even pass, I should say. You see me? So now have to look out for falling rocks and them thing them people. And flood this area and them something there, you see me? But right now I'm just go and watch the weather. So I come show no I go and who can get to reach the weather. So let's look what I go on and catch the weather
Tropical
report.
storm Raphael has formed just south of Jamaica, and it is now forecast to become a Category 2 hurricane.
Yeah man, thanks for light it up, Jessica. Yeah, there you big up yourself.
Starts right now.
Yeah man, my people, a serious thing are going right now. So when you get enough food, you see me? Get enough food and them thing there and make sure your son are getting yourself safe. Yeah man, thanks Jessica. Jesse.
We'll take a look at the conditions that are expected in your area and then look at the models where this might be going and just how strong it's going to get. Other active weather, other potential areas of tropical development to get into as well. First thing, I want to let everyone know that I am going to be going live later tonight and potentially
yes, I'm wanting to look out for this, my people, because trust me, we have to track this down.
So get ready for that.
And make sure so we keep ahead of the game and on top of the game. Because a whole heap of things are going on, a whole heap of flood. You see me?
Start time as of now. It'll all depend on when the impacts
all of my people I'm checking. One love seeing me.
Considering this is going to be a late night stream and overnight. That's why you subscribe to the channel. That's why you have the notifications on so you know when I am going to go live. Once I have a better idea, I'll probably schedule the live stream so you at least have a little bit of a heads up. But look for our live coverage here at Media Mundo of Tropical Storm Raphael impacting Jamaica coming later tonight. Let's talk about what's happening. As of the 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time advisory on this Monday from the National Hurricane Center, we now
respect Shani Vlog, big up yourself. That's a share. What go on, you know, because it's very important. So now, they're going to please stack up on have to stack up all out the on the road. The safe same way, you see me?
Reconnaissance aircraft are actually starting to see the beginning of an eye wall, and there is the possibility, especially starting tomorrow morning, that Raphael could rapidly intensify. But we can see a nice blow-up of convection. That's that black and white near the center of circulation right now on this enhanced satellite imagery. This is what it looks like on the visible satellite imagery.
They record a big up yourself, you know. Let's share some tips with me. People let me don't know. Yeah, man.
Approached 40 miles an hour from time to time. And again, when we had the height of the daylight,
yeah, man, Lorena, true, man.
There's a little bit better spin. There's good outflow.
But the next thing we have to do pray, you know.
Of the storm. Now, looking at where this is likely to track, again, the forecast for the Hurricane Center has the center stay just off.
Yeah, man, record a big up all watcher yesterday and I play same way, you know.
On Tuesday morning. It's still not a good track for Jamaica because
we over in a Portland, St. Mary side, you know. So all the weather going with you over there. You know, watch it.
Tropical storm warnings. The interesting thing though is that the Hurricane Center has upped the potential intensity, and now as it basically moves just away from Jamaica, it's forecast to become a hurricane already with winds of 75 miles an hour. That means Raphael is likely to be a hurricane when it impacts the Cayman Islands late on Tuesday. The reds that you see for Little Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Grand Cayman are hurricane warnings. And then now, the newest information, it's forecast to be a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 100 miles an hour as it moves across western Cuba. As it gets into the Gulf of Mexico Wednesday, Thursday, there's not a lot of consensus with the models.
We want to have a lot of rain, my people, trust me.
It's going to slow up and it's going
starting in the night.
It is forecast to be a hurricane as it gets into the south central Gulf of Mexico. This is what it looks like kind of timelined out here. And again, by tomorrow afternoon, it is forecast to become a hurricane as it's moving away from Jamaica. I don't expect hurricane impacts for Jamaica but it'll be close. And then you get hurricane impacts for the Cayman Islands, portions of central and the western sides of Cuba. And then from there, we're just going to have to wait and see. Again, I think it's going to slow up a bit, and it's going to weaken in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll talk more about what could be happening in the Gulf coming up in the video. But this is the list of the warnings and the watches that are currently in effect for Jamaica. It's a tropical storm warning. The Cayman Islands are under a hurricane warning. A hurricane watch is in effect for western Cuba, and then a tropical storm watch for central Cuba, the lower and middle Florida Keys, and the dry Tortugas. More than likely tomorrow, the hurricane watch and tropical storm watch for Cuba will be upgraded to warnings. These are the estimated times of arrival of tropical storm force winds, expecting the weather to go downhill even further tonight in Jamaica. We've already had some squally weather, some downpours and some lightning, but it's just going to be picking up in intensity here and just becoming sustained tropical storm force conditions late tonight, midnight, and overnight. And then you can see again moving to the north and to the west, beginning to impact the Cayman Islands throughout the afternoon hours of tomorrow, and then really getting back.
Just a second, my people. Yes, recorder just a share say yo in a film place at a Ocherius, rain stop and thing. But I want to tell you say today in a St. Mary like up on Nato Bay side to Portland. But that I want to tell you say yo today was the morning was like very sunny. Today out of our rest of the week more sun come out to the pretty blue sky. Till me have to say yo, it come like this are the calm before the storm. Right now if you look on the sea, you look out in the ocean, trust me. The ocean, the wave them very flat, come like lake. And that's one of the things them we use say identify say storm da sea. My father teach me that. But continue and watch what I go on my people.
At late afternoon into the evening, and then over Cuba early on Wednesday into the southeast Gulf of Mexico with potential tropical storm impacts for the Florida Keys throughout the day on Wednesday. And then from there, again, there's just not a lot of agreement with the models as to where this is going to go once it gets into the Gulf. But friends, with Rafael, we now have our 17th named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season. I know there were some lulls in activity from time to time, but this by any means was not a underperforming Atlantic hurricane season to get 17 named storms and potentially another hurricane out of Rafael. This is what it looked like earlier today in Kingston, Jamaica, one of the areas that will be directly impacted by the storm tonight. Trisha Easton in that photo, appreciate that. You can see those darker clouds, a lot of tropical moisture beginning to stream into Jamaica. As we get into it, friends, you know I appreciate our Media Mundo weather community. Thank you for all those who have recently found the channel. Thank you for taking a quick second and liking this video and subscribing to the channel. If you want these daily forecasts, if you want these tropical updates, you found your home. Both of those things really support the channel, and I do appreciate that. Share this with your family and friends. You want to find other ways to support us. The join button, that's our membership. It's just 99 cents a month. You get custom badges and emojis for when we go live. Super thanks are always open. You can find other ways to support the channel in the video description below as well. Okay, so now we're going to deep dive into what's going to be happening with Rafael. We're going to look at all the different models. First things first, though, let's see what's happening across our area on this Monday afternoon. You can already see the blow up of showers and storms over Jamaica. Kingston has already had a wind gust of over 30 miles an hour, and this rain is going to get more persistent. It's going to get heavy at times, and these winds will obviously be picking up. Again, don't expect hurricane impacts across the island, but with this track expected by the National Hurricane Center, either shaving the west coast of the island or just offshore, that means the entire island is on the east, stronger side of Rafael, and the entire island is likely to get tropical storm conditions. We might be a little bit stronger on the western side of the island, you know, Treasure Beach and Black River there on over towards South Lamar and Cambridge and Montego Bay and the Lucy and the Negril areas. But there's not going to be too much of a difference even east because these squalls, these feeder bands coming in will have some potent winds even farther away from the center of circulation. Down the road, obviously, we're concerned about hurricane conditions in the Cayman Islands. Cayman Brac had a 25-mile-an-hour wind gust earlier. They've really yet to see a lot of rain set in. Really, the moisture has been more prominent on the east side of the storm so far. And so places like Haiti and the Dominican Republic have actually had a fairly wet day because of this. And that other broad area of center of circulation there over the Turks and Caicos, which is, again, not going to develop, but it's really brought some very, very fresh winds all the way up and down the Bahamas into the Turks and Caicos. Nassau, Freeport, Lucaya there in Grand Bahama have been pushing some 40-mile-an-hour winds, and this band of moisture has moved as far southeast as the ABC Islands. So Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, especially Aruba and Curacao, have gotten some rain and some storms today and some gusty winds, and I've got a photo out of Aruba to show you coming up a little bit later in the video. But you can just see that it's not just the center of circulation, but this larger spin that's real promoting a good, hefty, widespread showers and storms. Portions of Costa Rica and Panama, wet, stormy flooding there. Portions of Nicaragua and Honduras as well. But obviously, the impacts are going to be felt most directly for Jamaica, Cuba, and the Cayman Islands in the next couple of days. So now let's get into the video. Now let's get into the forecast and take a look at that. Now this yellow area, again, is down the road, a 20% chance for the National Hurricane Center, which is why, again, it's going to be a very active first half of November tropically here, and this may not even be the last thing to talk about before the midpoint of the month. But we'll get into the models. We'll start off with our GFS deterministic, which, by the way, ended up doing pretty good here with the evolution of Raphael and bringing it close to Jamaica. So I'm going to take this step by step. We'll look at the GFS deterministic, we'll look at the winds, we'll look at the wind profile, we'll look at the European model, some of the higher resolution models that are running on this as well. By the way, we have these spaghetti plots, of course, that are running, these tropical models. These are all those little lines that you see. I'll take off these wind fields so you can see a little bit better. Notice that there's very good agreement from our tropical models right in this cone of uncertainty, okay? So again, there's a high likelihood that the center stays just offshore, but it's still going to have some pretty good impacts here. And if we take a look at the latest advisory from Raphael, and again, I can bring this on screen for you guys. What I wanted to look at here real quickly, and we'll get into all this other information, is that the tropical storm force winds extend 105 miles from the center, okay? And that's going to be on the eastern side of the storm. This is why all of Jamaica will see tropical storm force conditions, because the wind profile field is far enough east where even places like Port Antonio will see tropical storm conditions. All right, let's get into it, guys. So again, starting off tonight, 7 o'clock. It'll start to just go downhill during this time frame. On the GFS deterministic, again, is it a impressive looking storm? No. But is it going to be a moderate tropical storm with rainfall impacts, landslide, mudslides, power outage impacts with 60-plus mile-an-hour winds, and obviously the opportunity to have some damage to structures and trees and stuff? Absolutely. It's not Beryl. Let me be clear about that. But it is still going to be bringing impacts to the island, and this is going to be an overnight storm. Again, this will be moving in after sunset tonight. You can see by about 1 a.m. tomorrow morning, and then through about 3, 4 a.m., that's probably about the height of the storm, through about 7 a.m., and then trying to kind of pull away by around 10 a.m. And you can start to see that the center gets a little bit clearer here as we get into the early afternoon hours of our Tuesday. There's a storm, and we'll talk about the Cayman Islands coming up here and then moving away. But again, just to back this up, we'll just take it island by island once again for Jamaica. Squally weather starts tonight. The main impacts overnight through about daybreak tomorrow morning. Winds 45 to 65 miles an hour. We could see up to 9 inches of rain locally. Even though this is a relatively fast-moving storm, and by the way, just to give you the details on that, because I don't think I did real quickly here, let's go back over to the advisory. Just as of now, the storm is moving to the north at 9 miles an hour. Sustained winds are 45, 175, or 280 kilometers from Kingston. But it is, again, forecast to move north and west. So we just got the low-level center to form, and it was slightly east of where the Hurricane Center thought it was going to be, but it's still forecast to move to the north and west around a ridge that's to the north and east of the storm, so it can't go too much further directly north. it's going to have to start going somewhat west. Okay, so let's continue with this. Now, as we get into tomorrow morning, things will get better for Jamaica. But now we have to talk about what's going to be happening for the Cayman Islands. Again, the GFS is kind of on the eastern side of this envelope, and I got to tell you something. Where this tracks over the Cayman Islands will have significant differences for the islands. If the storm tracks east of Grand Cayman, they will still be impacted fairly significantly, but they will be on the weaker western side of the storm. And it will all depend on just how small Raphael is going to be. It's a relatively small storm right now, right? The winds are kind of elongated on the eastern side, but not much west. So if the storm passes east of Grand Cayman, it's better news for Grand Cayman. But based on this GFS model and several of these spaghetti plots, this is about the worst case scenario for Little Cayman and Cayman Brac tomorrow evening, where we could have a Category 1 and maybe a high-end Category 1 hurricane moving across the island. That means winds could be sustained of around 85 miles an hour. If you look at this one right here, okay, for the Hurricane Center, that's what they have, sustained winds of 85. So I expect this to be an 80 to 85 mile an hour hurricane moving across Little Cayman and Cayman Brac late on our Tuesday. That's why the hurricane warnings are in effect. And sea surface temperatures,
Yes, Sharon, everything is okay so far over here. A lot of rain
Hurricane Center is talking about
on and off, but
good
as
strengthening or
the
even
night
rapid
fall,
intensification, kind of on
it
the
get
edge of
more
that. And you can see that the
more
GFS,
rain.
just before it really begins to get
Today was
impacted,
more like
moving into
clear.
Cuba,
Yeah.
really shows a clear center of circulation there. And again, this forecast is
But
Category 2
as the
now,
weatherman said,
winds
by
of
tomorrow
100 miles
we
an
should
hour
alright.
as it moves across the western
Actually,
side of Cuba.
most
From
of the rain
there,
going to
take a
fall
look at
tonight,
these
so
spaghetti plots.
we'll just spraying and
Again,
keep
I'll put this
ourselves
back into
safe and
motion.
dry.
It's going to kind of
And I hope all my
move into
people
the
doing
central
the
Gulf
same,
of
you know.
Mexico. I think two things are going to happen. It's going to slow down and it should weaken. There's going to be a lot stronger southwest wind shear in the Gulf of Mexico. There's going to be a little bit drier air to the north. And sea surface temperatures, which could still support tropical storm conditions, just are kind of on that edge. Now, again, this is not the development area, so it's not like we're trying to produce a tropical storm or hurricane in the north central Gulf of Mexico, but upper 70s to lower 80s sea surface temperatures in Fahrenheit, they're not going to allow this storm to continue to rapidly intensify. It's either going to hold strength or more than likely weaken. And at this point in time, and we'll get the other models coming up, I'm not concerned about the Gulf Coast of the United States to have significant impacts from this storm. If it does move into one location late this week into the weekend, it's going to do so more than likely as a very weak storm. Again, the only area I'd be concerned about would be the lower and middle Keys, from about the Marathon area just south of Isla Mirada towards Key West. And again, those are the areas that are under tropical storm watches at this point in time. You can see the GFS really does kind of blow apart that storm as it gets into the central Gulf of Mexico. So that's what it looks like rain-wise, your reflectivity. Now the all-important wind field, okay? Because there are going to be some significant winds out of this storm now that we're talking about a Category 2. So these are going to be your sustained winds at the surface from the GFS. These are wind gusts. So these are winds that we need to prepare for to be sustained in your area, and then some locally higher gusts to go along with that. So we're going to let that loop up. Let me take off these spaghetti plots because we're not talking about the track any longer. So let's drop those. It'll be just a little bit easier to see. Okay, so let's get into it. Again, we'll start at the beginning this afternoon. Let me back up the model timeline here. Let's see. Let's go back a little bit further here. I want to make sure it starts from where I want it to. Don't let it loop up. All right. Give me 1 second. I'm going to bring it back. There's a little bit of a timing issue there. We'll see. It might be actually picking up the newest run of the GFS as we speak. It could be trying to forward the 18Z. All right, that's fine. Doesn't look like it wants to go any further back than 1 a.m., but that's okay. You can clearly see that the track is online. You can see that the strongest winds, which are highlighted in your pink and your whites, are on the eastern side of the storm. Now, at this point in time, right, you're going to start to see those winds begin to freshen up on the south coast. And it will really just depend on, how quickly this can wrap up. I think the GFS is slightly underdoing things at this point in time. Remember, we already have a 45-mile-an-hour storm. So it kind of wants to keep it slightly weaker here. But notice that when we just hit away from the island, now it really starts to intensify. And you start to pick up the winds that we are expecting. Do expect there to be stronger winds than what the GFS is showing here. We'll take a look at some of the other models coming up. But over to Cayman Islands, right? Now you start to pick up even stronger winds here. And again, it does look like the GFS is slightly behind what the Hurricane Center has. The Hurricane Center talked about that they were going with a higher wind solution. Considering this is already 45, we can clearly see that. That's when it gets strong here on the GFS, and you start to pick up your hurricane force winds. They're right about there. But again, the GFS is weaker in this last run. I don't buy it. I think that the fact that we already have a 45-mile-an-hour storm is important, and so we can kind of call the GFS as a bit of a weaker outlier, all right? And so you can see it again kind of moving up the eastern envelope in the Gulf of Mexico and fading away, but it clearly has a well-defined low level of circulation. Let's switch on over to one of the other models here, and we'll take a look at that over the next little bit. Curious to see what this tropical model brings, and then we'll take a look at the European, the H-Worth, and the H-Mon as well. So I'm just going to bring this up, let it loop up over time as well. And again, all looks to be right on that track. So now it will really be about intensification. And can the models handle the rapid intensification that is forecast from the National Hurricane Center? I've mentioned this many times if you guys have joined me through the year. The models are really, really good at track and not so great as a developing storm rapidly intensifies. They just haven't been able to handle it much, and neither is this one as well. Remember Milton? The models never picked up on how strong Milton was as it moved across the Gulf of Mexico and into Florida. Just never fully picked up on it, but we can clearly see that we have that centerline track here as well. So now let's get into the other model. We'll start off with the GFS ensemble, okay, because first of all, very clustered through western Cuba into the Gulf of Mexico. We start to see a bit of a spread, right? Notice that it gets weaker as it tries to move north, and many members actually dissipate the storm. And that's what I'm hoping for, that it sits in the central Gulf long enough where that wind shear and the drier air impacts it enough where it just falls apart before it really impacts any land. That's what the European has. Just as it tries to get to the south coast of Texas at the end of the weekend, it falls apart. But it's a stronger storm here on the Cayman Islands, western Cuba. That track looks to be fairly locked in now, guys. And then a big model spread here. Remember, the GFS deterministic was kind of trying to get into the central and eastern panhandle of Florida, and the European model is way out here, South Texas, and portions of Louisiana. But again, just looking at that track, shaving the western side of Jamaica, over the Cayman Islands, and exactly where it goes to the Cayman Islands will have significant differences on the impacts the islands are going to see there, and again, moving off towards the west. Now, the ensemble members, we can clearly see that we'll get a spread over the southeast Gulf of Mexico, and then even more of a spread here, but they favor the north central or the western sides of the Gulf, and again, most of them just beyond this time frame begin to weaken it more. You'll see that there's one little member here with an area of low pressure near Cuba. That would be the secondary area, that 20% chance here across portions of the greater Antilles, the Turks and Caicos, and the southeast Bahamas. Weak signal, at least at this point in time. Here's the H-Mon model, guys. That's a really slow loop. Look at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. We'll pick it up from right here. Winds are 45. So as it moves west of Jamaica, again, 53 to 64. Now it gets stronger. Now, again, this one still has it as a tropical storm over the Cayman Islands, but then trying to get stronger here. Again, the H-Mon is weaker than the National Hurricane Center, but it keeps it as a hurricane into the central Gulf of Mexico. And again, this is the latest run, the 12Z here from this morning, the full run that I had for you guys. Again, probably just initiating this a little bit weaker and keeping it slightly weaker. The interesting thing is it tries to make it a hurricane just before the Cayman Islands and actually weakens it a bit, then brings it back to hurricane strength. That's the first time that I've seen a model actually drop it in intensity a bit because it's not really going to be interacting with land and there's no wind shear and sea surface temperatures are really warm across the Cayman Islands and Jamaica and just that part of the Caribbean Sea. Here's the H-Worth model. So again, about the same time frame. So we're up to 61 now. We're building towards a hurricane right there over the Cayman Islands, and then a stronger storm. This one is much more in line with the hurricane center. The H-Worth is, again, close to 100-mile-an-hour winds there. You can see we have some tropical storm impacts from the Florida Keys, and then just slowly kind of pushing to the north and to the west. Still a hurricane here, even as we get into Thursday. But again, just one more time, just on the western side of Jamaica as a medium tropical storm, becoming a hurricane over the Cayman Islands, or just slightly longer, later in time than what the Hurricane Center has. Near 100-mile-an-hour winds as it moves across western Cuba. And then as we get into Thursday morning, again, some impacts for the Florida Keys. Potentially we could see some impacts for even southwest Florida on that into the afternoon.
Yeah, my people, thank you for watching. As we see what going on, it's just a good look so far. So you know the hurricane go and die out in a way. That's what them predict after I pass Jamaica. As you see, it will become a category 2 hurricane, you see me? But right now, we just continue to pray, my people, and just keep safe. You see? So just stay tuned and watch what I go on. Look out for your next video.